I spent nearly 10 years saving every dollar, every cent, through exhausting overtime shifts and weekends without rest. And yet, in less than a minute, it was all gone, without a trace. I wasn't robbed, nor was I scammed by a stranger. The culprit was the person I once trusted most. And worse? She left a note so fake it suggested I should be grateful that she was starting a new life. My name is Aria. I'm 32 years old, living in Seattle, working as a senior accountant at a logistics company. A job so demanding, I rarely have time to lift my head from spreadsheets. That morning was just like any other, until my phone buzzed with a notification from the bank. Unusual activity detected on your account. Please confirm. At first, I just glanced at it, assuming it was a system error or someone had sent it by mistake. But a strange gut feeling made me pause. I opened the banking app, typed in the verification code, and then I froze. Checking account balance, $7.13. Savings account, $0.00. I blinked several times, palms starting to sweat. Every penny I had saved, over $84,000, vanished overnight. No warning, no alert. I immediately called the bank. A calm middle-aged woman answered the phone. "Hello, how may I assist you?" "I just discovered my savings account was emptied. I didn't authorize that transaction." She asked me to verify my identity, then spoke more slowly and carefully. "The transaction was made through online banking at 3:42 this morning. And the person who made it is the co-owner on the account." It felt like being punched in the chest. Co-owner? There was only one person ever linked to that account. My mother. Back when I was in college and needed her to help verify finances to open it. Later, I tried several times to remove her access. But every time I hesitated. She was my mother after all. No. It couldn't be, not her. No way. I forced myself to stay calm and asked, "Where was the money transferred?" "I was sent to an international account. We confirmed it was deposited into a bank in Portugal." I dropped the phone. It felt like something inside me snapped, not because of the money, but because of the cruel truth unraveling before me. I stormed out of the office, not even sure what I told my manager. I drove home, to the small apartment I bought 2 years ago after years of scrimping. I needed to be sure. I needed proof for what my logic already knew, but my heart refused to accept. My mother's apartment was about 15 minutes away by car. She moved to Seattle from Florida 3 years ago after her second divorce, and I helped her settle everything, from housing to applying for assistance. She said she wanted a fresh start. I believed her. I even helped pay off her credit card debt. I used the spare key to open her apartment. The one she insisted I have, for emergencies. Inside was quiet. Everything was in place, the fridge was empty. Only a letter sat on the kitchen counter, folded neatly, my name written in her familiar cursive. I opened it. "Dearest Aria, I'm sorry for leaving like this. I need a new opportunity, a new life, and sometimes that means letting go of the old. Please forgive me. One day, you'll understand. Love. Mom." I crushed the paper in my fist, lips trembling with anger, pain, and disgust. A new life? What about me? What about the years I worked myself to the bone, gave up vacations, dreams, only to be betrayed by the woman who gave birth to me? I collapsed onto the floor, back pressed against the cold fridge. I hadn't even processed it all when my phone buzzed again. An email. From HR? Confirmation, Aria Morgan is on an unpaid personal leave, request from. The verified email address. I jumped up. That email? I didn't send that. I never requested any leave. And only one person knew enough of my personal and work details to fake it. She didn't just take my money. She wanted to erase me completely. No one would look for me. No one would ask. I looked around the kitchen where I once cooked for her. once argued over trivial things. Now, it was just a shell. Just like her. No, I couldn't let this be the ending. I took a deep breath, stood up, grabbed my phone, and headed back to the car. I didn't know what I would do next. But one thing was certain. She thought she had won. But the game had only just begun. I got back to my apartment just as the Seattle sky faded into evening. The dim light outside mirrored the emptiness inside me. I didn't turn on the lights. I didn't need them to realize I had just been completely robbed by my own mother. Not just financially, but of the final shred of trust I had left. I sank onto the living room floor, surrounded by scattered work papers and a half-eaten box of cold pizza. My mind kept replaying the line from her note, "I need a new life." Every time I read it again, I felt more sickened. My phone buzzed. I glanced at it indifferently, expecting another email faked by her. But no. It was an unfamiliar number from Arizona. "Hello?" I answered, my voice hoarse. "Aria Morgan, this is Stephen Kane, attorney for Mrs. Dolores Whitman, your grandmother. I regret to inform you that she passed away this morning. Would you be able to travel to Tucson in the next few days?" My entire body froze, like being thrown into a freezer. No, that can't be. I stammered. I just FaceTimed with her last week. She was fine. She told me her orchids were blooming. It was a sudden heart attack. Emergency services couldn't save her. I couldn't respond. The air had been sucked out of the room. I leaned my head against the wall, closed my eyes, trying to stay composed, but the tears came anyway. Uncontrollable. Unforgiving. Dolores Whitman wasn't just my grandmother. She was the only one who never abandoned me. No matter how many times my mother broke promises. No matter how many nights I was left waiting outside school until 10 p.m. because she forgot. It was Grandma who always showed up. Never angry, never complaining. She was the one who secretly paid my college tuition after my mother pulled her support at the last second. She bought me my first interview suit. She was the only one who ever looked my mother in the eye and said, "Stop using that girl like a walking wallet." And now she was gone too. "Aria, I know this is a lot to take in," Mr. Kane said gently, "but your grandmother left a will, and you've been named the sole heir. We need you here to finalize some matters." I couldn't hear anything else, my ears were ringing. All I felt was the sensation of falling, with no end in sight. "My dear, make sure you eat properly. I have a strange feeling like something is about to happen. But don't worry, I've prepared everything for you. No matter what happens, remember, you deserve a better life." I broke down crying like a child. Not because of the money, not because of the betrayal, but because the last person who ever stood by me was gone forever. The next morning, I sat in the kitchen, stunned, clutching a cup of coffee gone cold, my eyes fixed on an email from the airline confirming my flight to Tucson. I would fly out that evening. Another notification popped up. New transaction alert from my bank account. I opened it. A new withdrawal from a dependent credit card I'd forgotten my mother still had. This time, a charge in Lisbon, Portugal. A 4-star hotel. 1-week reservation. I gripped my phone and through clenched teeth, hissed. Usasemi snorted. "Even while I'm planning the funeral of the only person who truly loved me?" I stayed frozen for a few minutes. Then slowly stood up. Yes, I had to fly to Tucson. But after that? That would be a different journey. Not for revenge, but to reclaim what was rightfully mine. And she wouldn't see it coming. Because she forgot one very important thing. Dolores Whitman was never the kind to leave empty-handed. And if my grandmother left me anything, I would use it to end this game for good. I arrived in Tucson on a gloomy afternoon, the sky streaked with gray clouds that mirrored my mood. Attorney Stephen Kane's office was in a red brick building, not far from the cemetery where my grandmother had just been laid to rest. I had laid flowers at her grave earlier that morning, a bouquet of pale blue hydrangeas, her favorite. I didn't cry. I had no more tears left to shed. Stephen met me at the door, a middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair, dressed simply but neatly. He shook my hand, his eyes reflecting genuine sympathy, not the cheap pity I'd become all too familiar with. "Boji. Arya, thank you for coming. I know this isn't an easy time for you." "It's fine," I replied, flatly. "I need to know what my grandmother left. And what she wanted from me." We stepped into a small conference room, where a stack of documents, a few cups of coffee, and a thick, cream-colored envelope sat neatly in front of me. Stephen took a seat across from me, opening the folder before him. "Dolores Whitman was a woman of great foresight, Arya. She prepared for this day 3 years ago. The will was last updated 8 months ago." I nodded slightly, my chest heavy. "You are the sole beneficiary," he said, short and sharp as a blade. "All assets, shares, real estate, investments, everything, is in your name as of her passing." I was stunned. "I'm sorry, could you clarify? Everything means—" He nodded, sliding the file toward me. "The Blue Horizon boutique hotel chain, currently valued at $11.8 million. 3 plots of land in Arizona and New Mexico, worth about $3 million. A mixed investment portfolio, nearly $1.4 million. In addition, a liquid account with approximately $620,000. And a collection of antique jewelry I believe you've seen before." I gripped the armrests of my chair. My mouth had gone dry. "I didn't know she had so much." Doradas was discreet, but very intentional, and "You should also know she was especially firm when it came to your mother." "Miss Gloria Morgan." My chest tightened at that name. Bakchi. "What did my grandmother say?" Stephen opened a handwritten note attached to the will. He read every word, clearly. "I, Dolores Whitman, deliberately and with full awareness exclude my daughter Gloria Morgan from any inheritance, because I believe she has spent her life abusing the trust of others. She has had more than enough, from me and from others. She deserves not a single cent more." I clenched my hands under the table. My grandmother really wrote that? In her handwriting, then signed. There's also a video verification. I exhaled deeply. My emotions were a tangle of shock and sadness. I had always known my grandmother saw through my mother's facade, but reading those words still pierced my heart. Stephen slid the envelope toward me. "This. She asked me to hand to you personally. It's her personal journal, some pages marked. And a final letter." I opened the envelope. Inside was a worn leather-bound book with gilded edges, heavy, and carrying the scent of old paper. I didn't open it immediately. My hands were still trembling. "Oh, question, Stephen," I looked up. "Does my mother know about any of this yet?" "It?" He hesitated. "I received 3 calls from an unknown number over the last 2 days. The woman identified herself as Gloria Morgan, demanding her rightful share and threatening legal action if excluded from the will. I recorded all of it." I scoffed. The sound cold as metal scraping over ice. "She's in Lisbon, living off my money. And she's still not letting go." Stephen looked at me with weighted eyes. "Arya, your grandmother left you more than wealth. This isn't just an inheritance. It's an opportunity. You could stay silent, live in comfort, sever all ties. Or I could give my mother a taste of what she's spent her life dealing out. Consequences." He said nothing more. I stood, journal and documents in hand, thanked him, and walked out of the office. On the way back to the hotel, I opened the journal. A page was marked with red ribbon. I flipped to it. "Dearest Arya, if you're reading this, then I'm gone. But I've watched you grow into a strong, kind, and unwavering woman. Traits your mother tried to extinguish. I didn't leave you wealth. I left you freedom. Freedom from manipulation, from the burdens your mother always placed on you. But remember, Don't let anger rule you. A snake is most dangerous when it thinks it's winning. Don't sever the tie too soon. Let her walk into the trap she built herself. I closed the journal, hands clenched. I knew exactly what I needed to do. And this time, I would be the one leading the way. I sat in the lounge of the small hotel in Tucson. My grandmother's journal laid open in front of me. The page marked with red tape still there like a slash straight across the palm. I had read that entry dozens of times in the past 24 hours, and each time it became clearer. My grandmother hadn't just left me an inheritance, she left me a strategy. A way to end it all, not through rage, but with the same cold, calculated intellect my mother once prided herself on. Don't cut her off, Aria, I whispered, as if speaking to my grandmother. Let her walk into the trap herself. I opened my laptop, logged into my personal email, and typed a sweet-sounding subject line. Something we need to talk about, please read carefully. The message was short. Mom, I know about everything. But I also know you did what you did to chase a better life. I understand that, truly. Grandma left me quite a lot, and I don't think it's fair to keep it all. I want to share a portion. If you truly want to start over, I'll send you a plane ticket to Seattle. We can talk there, really talk, one last time. Aria. I didn't hit send immediately. I needed to stage everything before casting the bait. 3 weeks later, I officially took ownership of the entire estate, including the villa on Bainbridge Island, which had been Grandma's favorite retirement spot, and the penthouse in downtown Seattle my mother had coveted for over 10 years. The penthouse was the perfect golden cage, luxurious, expensive, and full of things my mother would never be able to control. I hired Ryan, a security specialist and former military, to install hidden surveillance throughout the unit, from the safe to the jewelry cabinet, from the laptop to the landline phone. Everything was encrypted, but sprinkled with enticing breadcrumbs, fabricated account numbers, fake passwords, and forged financial agreements designed to lure her in. I also hired Amanda, my best friend from college, now an IT specialist, to set up full-room audio recording and a firewall to intercept any outgoing emails without pre-approval. Meanwhile, I asked Mr. Stephen Kane to accidentally let it slip to my mother's attorney that I was considering sharing a portion of the inheritance if there was goodwill. One subtle nudge was all it took. Sure enough, less than a week later, she replied with an email, titled, "Sweetheart, I miss you." I let out a cold laugh, lips pressed tight. It had begun. I booked a first-class ticket from Lisbon to Seattle and emailed it with a message. You should rest during the long flight. Seattle is beautiful this time of year. I've prepared a special room. You'll recognize it immediately. Her reply came not long after. You always know how to touch my heart. Thank you for this chance. I promise I won't disappoint you again. Won't disappoint me again? Last time she cleaned out my entire account. Before that, she convinced me to drop out of school to help her with business. The first time, when I was just 12, she used my writing prize money to pay off a credit card I never even knew existed. This time, she would get one last chance to reveal her true self under the gaze of every camera in the house. The morning she landed at SeaTac, I didn't go to the airport. I sent a private driver instead, along with a bouquet of white orchids. The flower, she once said, makes me feel elegant again. I stood in the penthouse living room when I heard the door open. She walked in, her blonde hair perfectly blown out, a cream cashmere coat draped over her shoulders, a Prada bag swinging from her arm. "Aria, darling," she exclaimed, like a bad stage actress. I kept my face neutral, extended my hand. "Welcome back, Mom. This apartment will be yours for the next few weeks, if everything goes well." Her eyes scanned the room, paused at the oil painting of Grandma on the wall, then quickly shifted to the safe in the corner. She couldn't hide the glint in her gaze. "This room is the master suite," I said. "Fully renovated, includes some of the jewelry you always loved from Grandma." Her eyes sparkled like a child promised a trip to Disneyland. You really want to share part of it with me? I nodded. But not right away. Spend a few days here, let's have dinner together. Let's see if you've truly changed, show me through actions, not words. 3 days later I got Amanda's report. She's opened the safe 5 times. Took photos of the forged documents on the computer. Sent 3 emails. All intercepted. Intent suggests she's trying to sell financial information. I shut my laptop, fists tightening. Every move was playing out exactly as I had planned, not one misstep. She believed she was on top of the world. But I knew. The trap had already snapped shut. The screen glowed before me in the dark of my private office, where only the sound of Amanda's typing echoed. She was operating the entire surveillance network from the security room beneath the penthouse. A place my mother had no idea existed. Every time she opened a drawer, tested a password or flipped through a page, every motion was recorded. Clear down to the smallest flicker of her eyes. I leaned on the desk, eyes fixed on screen number 3. The one showing the camera angle inside the master bedroom. The room she had once dreamed of. And now, it had become a glittering glass cage, trapping the true nature of that woman inside. She's opening the safe again, Amanda said softly, her mouth curling slightly, almost with contempt. I nodded, clenching both hands. The 8th time in less than 48 hours. Inside was a set of high-quality fake diamond jewelry, detailed enough to fool the average eye. Placed beside fabricated stock transfer agreements, stating figures up to $8.3 million, and the name of the firm my mother once desperately tried to join, a decade ago. She doesn't suspect anything? I asked, eyes still on the ceiling-mounted corner camera. Amanda shook her head. No, she thinks she's winning. She's already started sending document photos through anonymous emails, but everything's routed straight into my filter system. On screen, my mother pulled her phone from her purse and quickly snapped pictures of each page. Her face lit up with excitement. Just like the day I caught her lying to Grandma faking illness to squeeze out college tuition for Aria. Which I later discovered was spent paying off Vegas gambling debt. She already sent them using a VPN, Amanda added, but it didn't get past our firewall. I'm backing up everything to an external drive too. You have the data logs? Every second. Every photo. Every time she opened the safe. I took a deep breath. But the relief never came. What I truly felt was emptiness. Like standing at the edge of a skyscraper, knowing you could push someone off, but unsure if you'd feel any lighter after. For the next 3 days, I let everything unfold just as she hoped. Each morning she wore expensive dresses from the closet, all tagged with RFID sensors. Every time she removed jewelry from the case, Amanda received an alert. In the evening we dined together in the grand dining room. I cooked, and she talked animatedly, as if her 3 weeks in Europe had just been a lovely dream. She spoke of upcoming investment opportunities, and old friends eager to help her rejoin the financial world. I only smiled and nodded at the right moments, like admiring an oil painting I knew was fake. One night after dinner, she looked at me with that falsely glimmering gaze. Arya, I know you're still angry. But you let me stay here, eat with you, talk, share everything. That has to mean something, right? I replied, voice calm like wind brushing a glass window. It means I'm watching. Her eyes faltered for a split second, then she burst out in a light laugh. You've really grown up, I'm proud of you. Not because I'd succeeded, I thought, but because I had learned to control the game. Just like she once did. I wanted to say that out loud, but I didn't need a confession, I needed proof. And she was writing her own indictment with every move she made. Saturday morning, I called Amanda and Ryan upstairs to the study. On the desk was a printed list of every action recorded during the 8 days my mother had stayed in the penthouse. She tried accessing the fake bank account 4 times, Amanda reported. Attempted to send confidential files via email. Photographed all of the forged contracts we planted. Made at least 3 calls. one of them to Stephen Roswell, a shady broker previously investigated for tax evasion. "We have audio?" I ask. "Audio and video. Court admissible if needed." I nodded. What I felt wasn't anger anymore. It was clarity. Finally, there was no ambiguity. No more questions like, maybe she's changed? Or, could this be a misunderstanding? No. This was living proof of a behavior so deeply rooted, it could never be undone. I grabbed my phone, opened my contacts, and texted the one person who had known the plan from the beginning. Bryce. My mother's ex-boyfriend, whom she'd bankrupted through one of her trust me schemes. "I've got everything. The person, and the evidence. Are you ready?" He replied in less than a minute. "Say the word." I already called the journalist. They're standing by. I closed my phone, eyes locked on the camera feed one last time. My mother was seated at the vanity, holding the diamond necklace, smiling at herself in the mirror, like a queen reclaiming her crown. I whispered, "What you see is victory. What we see is a conviction." And I was ready to announce the verdict. Viridian Oak was where Seattle's financial elite gathered. Not loud, not too public, but discreet enough for million-dollar handshakes to be exchanged over filet mignon. It was also where my mother chose to host her strategic lunch, with 3 potential investors. Tempted by the very same fake contracts I had planted in the safe. I didn't need confirmation. Amanda had already sent me the audio from the night before. A call between my mother and Stephen Roswell, where she promised a minimum 25% return in 6 months, backed by Aria Morgan's inheritance. Hearing my name used as leverage in her scam made me both nauseated and cold to the core. "You sure about this?" Bryce asked from the driver's seat as we parked across the street from the restaurant. "This is the final step," I said, eyes fixed on the glass revolving door. "Where she would walk in like a queen and leave as a disgrace." She arrived exactly on time, as if her life were a pre-scripted production. Burgundy silk dress, crystal-studded heels, perfectly styled waves. I watched from the shadowed bar corner, beside Tina, a reporter I'd contacted in advance. She held up her phone, already recording, the audio streaming live to Amanda's laptop for backup. My mother sat at the table with 3 men. 2 small-time investors from Portland, and the third I recognized instantly as David Tran, director of a venture capital firm my mother had targeted 10 years ago, before he exposed her for financial document forgery. I exhaled sharply. She really hasn't learned anything. The first 5 minutes were full of introductions and flattery, wine poured. By minute 10, she began presenting the Blue Horizon Legacy Fund, a name I fabricated. Backed by inflated figures from fake financial assets, in a sandboxed database we had created. "Aria has been so generous," she purred. "She understands that money must circulate. And I'm the one to manage it. I've handled 5 multi-million-dollar projects before, and this time, I want to invite you into something truly special." I stepped away from the bar, clutching a USB drive containing clips of her secretly recorded activities at the penthouse. Bryce followed, Tina quietly behind with her camera. As I approached the table, she was pulling a stack of papers from her bag. Those fake equity transfer agreements. RU with my name on them. "Perfect." "Mom," I spoke up. She jumped, as if she'd seen a ghost in broad daylight. "Aria, what are you doing here?" "Oh, well, maybe you should ask yourself that question," I replied, pulling out a USB and placing it on the table. "Or should I help you explain the documents you're handing out to everyone?" The investors began glancing at one another, clearly confused. David Tren raised his eyebrows, recognizing me immediately. "You're Aria Morgan, owner of the Blue Horizon hotel chain?" I nodded. "And I have not authorized Gloria Morgan with any financial rights. The documents she's presenting are completely fraudulent." My mother stood up, her voice shaking. You're misunderstanding. These were things we discussed at home. You thought I was still stupid," I cut in, coldly. You thought I'd drain my savings again to invest in the family's future like I did when I was 19. But this time, you picked the wrong role. I pulled out my phone and played a video. On the screen, surveillance footage from the bedroom showed my mother opening the safe, snapping pictures of the documents, making calls, sending emails. The audio rang clearly through the restaurant. I have all the documents. I'm in control. Aria trusts me blindly. She never checks. My mother's face went pale. She turned to David. I was set up. This is revenge. It's not real. David closed the folder bluntly. I've met you before, Miss Gloria. And I spent 6 months cleaning up the mess from your empty promises. I'm not making that mistake again. Thanks for reminding me why I walked away the first time. The other 2 investors stood up without a word. Tina clicked her camera, beginning to film openly. Would you like to say anything? She asked. My mother turned to me, her face as white as paper. Why, I'm your mother. I looked her straight in the eyes. No more fear, no more guilt. That's exactly why you thought you had the right to keep deceiving me. But you forgot something. I've grown up. And this time, I know exactly who I am. And who you are. I turned away from the table. Tina's camera flashed behind me, like the final blow to a collapsing performance. She didn't call after me. She just stood there. A figure that once loomed large in my memories, now fading like ashes in a quiet afternoon breeze. I waited for her in the private office on the top floor of the Blue Horizon, Seattle. Once her dream, now the place where I would end everything she ever manipulated. The room was eerily quiet. Outside, the city glittered at night. But inside, the air felt frozen. The door creaked open. My mother stepped in, her heels clicking lightly on the wood floor. But she no longer carried that usual pride. Her dress was wrinkled, her makeup couldn't hide the fatigue. Aria, she began, but I raised my hand to stop her. Sit down. I pointed to the chair across from the desk, where a thick file sat neatly. She sat carefully, like someone afraid to trigger a landmine. I looked straight into her eyes. Not with rage, not with hatred. Just the cold resolve forged from too many betrayals. You know what happened at the restaurant was rushed. I didn't think you would. She stammered. But I didn't let her finish. You thought I was still the foolish daughter willing to empty her account to invest with Mom? I spoke slowly, each word like a blade in the air. But now, you know I've changed. The question is, have you? She lowered her head. It was the first time I'd ever seen her silent for that long. I pushed the file toward her. This is what I've compiled. Copies of recordings, photos, surveillance footage, and a list of everyone you've contacted in the past 2 weeks. All backed up to 3 hard drives, one for my lawyer, one for the press, and one, just in case you accidentally disappear. Her face visibly paled. Aria, you can't do this. I'm still your mother. I tilted my head, cutting her off. Yes. And also, the first person who ever taught me that family doesn't always mean love. I pulled a thick envelope from the drawer and placed it beside the file. Inside is a one-way plane ticket to Bozeman, Montana, a 6-month lease for a modest apartment, and a small living stipend. Already transferred to a new account, not linked to me. You have 2 choices. I paused, locking eyes with her. Home? Walk away from all of this. Live a quiet life. No more scams, no more scripts. Accept the truth, and start over from 0. 2. Keep playing the victim, and I'll release everything to the media and the authorities. She looked at me, her lips trembling. You're threatening me? No. I'm giving you a final chance. One you've never given to any of the people you conned. I don't need you to love me. I need you to stop destroying everything I've tried to build. She pulled out the ticket from the envelope, hands shaking so badly she needed both of them to hold it. Bozeman? There's nothing there but snow and open fields. A new life, if you're brave enough to live it honestly. I don't know anyone there. I have nothing. Then you'll finally learn what it means to rebuild from scratch, just like I had to, every time you disappeared with my money. I stood up, pulled out my phone and opened my email app. You have 3 minutes. If you choose to go, I'll delete this message. If not, I'll hit send. Every reporter Tina flagged will get it. A copy will go to the city attorney's office. Silence. 1 minute. Then 2. She sat there, eyes hollow like she hadn't slept in days. Then suddenly she stood up. You're really going to throw me away like garbage? I looked at her, hollow inside. No. You threw yourself away. I'm just closing the lid. She quietly packed up the documents into her purse. No more excuses. No more blame. For the first time, I saw her accept defeat. When does the flight leave? She asked, eyes on the floor. 8:45 tonight. I've arranged a car to take you to the airport. She nodded, then walked to the door, her steps no longer hurried, no longer arrogant. As her hand touched the doorknob, she paused, without turning back. Arya, do you really think I can start over? If you truly want to, but I won't be standing by to see if you do. The door closed, slowly, silently. Bryce met me at our usual cafe in Westlake around midnight. Everything okay? I nodded. She chose Montana. And do you think she'll stick to it? I looked out the window, where Seattle still shimmered under the nightlights. I don't know. But I know one thing. If she goes back to her old ways, there won't be another choice next time. Bryce nodded, quietly sliding a hot coffee across the table. We sat together, without needing to say anything else. In my coat pocket, the USB holding all the evidence remained untouched, a reminder that the truth always holds weight. One fall morning, under a thin layer of Montana mist, I sat in a rental car parked 2 blocks from a small cafe called Pine Hollow. Through the foggy windshield, I saw my mother, Gloria Morgan, wiping down the counter, wearing a simple black uniform, her hair hanging straight behind her neck. No salon curls, no trace of the woman who once wrapped herself in silk and lies. She didn't know I had come, and this time, I wasn't here to expose her. I came to end a journey. I pushed open the door, as the wind chime above let out a soft jingle. The smell of roasted coffee and buttery pastries filled the quiet space. So peaceful it felt almost surreal, after everything that had happened. My mother was arranging sugar packets and straws behind the counter. When she heard the door, she turned, her eyes locking directly with mine. A flicker of shock crossed her face, then she exhaled softly, steadying herself. Arya. Mull black coffee, no sugar. I cut in. Not sharp, but firm enough. She nodded and awkwardly stepped behind the counter. I sat at the bar stool by the window, quietly opened my bag, and pulled out a faded velvet box. When she set the cup in front of me, I slid the box toward her. Open it. She hesitated, then slowly lifted the lid. Inside was Grandma Dolores's silver mirror. The one piece she never let anyone touch. The one my mother had tried to steal twice. It's the real one, I said. Not the one with the camera. Tears welled up in her eyes. You've kept it since Grandma passed? Yeah. But now, I think she'd want it back where it belongs. She gripped the box tightly, saying nothing. I pulled a slim folder from my coat and placed it on the counter next to the coffee. This is my only condition. Condition? She asked softly. I've created a fund, the Whitman Redemption Fund, to compensate the people you hurt. The ones you lied to, stole from, and left broken. I contribute 5% of Blue Horizon's monthly revenue. You will contribute 20% of your paycheck each month for at least 3 years. No skipping. No excuses. She looked at me, lips pressed into a line. Is it just about money? No. I looked directly at her. It's about responsibility. And your one chance to do what's right. Not to be forgiven, but to be forgotten. With dignity. A soft breeze tapped against the window. She nodded, like the years of running had finally surrendered. I've tried, Arya. Every day. Waking up at 5, cleaning bathrooms, wiping tables, hourly wages, no schemes. At first, I didn't think I could take it. But each dollar I earned felt clean. I nodded slightly, but didn't smile. No one asked you to live clean to be acknowledged. I just don't want to read about you in the news one day under a fake name and another fake deal. I won't. Her voice trembled. I've lost everything, Arya. And maybe that's the best thing that could have happened. When you have nothing left to hold on to, you finally see what's worth holding on to. I placed a small envelope on the counter. This is your first month's contribution form. All you need to do is sign. Amanda already sent a copy to the auditors. She picked up the pen, her hand still shaking. Signed. One simple name. Gloria Morgan. No embellishments. No aliases. Thank you, she said, eyes still avoiding mine, for giving me this chance, even though I don't deserve it. I stood up, lifting the coffee. Not because you deserve it, because I deserve to heal. I turned and walked out. The wind chime rang again, but this time it wasn't cold. A week later, I returned to Seattle. On my desk was a report from Bryce. The Whitman Fund had received its first contribution from Montana, along with a handwritten apology letter from my mother, addressed to a victim named Marla James in Chicago. I read it, then folded it shut. Not everything can be fixed. But some broken pieces, if you're patient, can be put back together. Not to forget, but to keep living. With truth. With consequences. With a chance. I knew I had made the right choice, not through logic or revenge, but through the survival instinct of a daughter who had learned how to rebuild from what was left. And that, in the end, was the hardest part of growing up. Life doesn't give us the power to choose our parents, but we do have the power to choose how we live. And what we allow to repeat. Arya learned that forgiveness isn't forgetting, it's laying down the weight, so we can begin to heal. Redemption doesn't come from words, but from consistent, enduring action. Even if the past can't be changed, she chose her future. A future no longer ruled by old pain. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't making someone fall, it's living strong without needing them. What do you think about Arya's choice? Did she do the right thing by giving her mother a second chance? Share your thoughts below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful stories about family and life. I once thought I grew up in a perfect family, a grand house in an upscale neighborhood, dinners under glittering chandeliers, and parents who always appeared glamorous with their flawless smiles. But if there's one thing I've learned over the years, it's that a perfect exterior can hide the deepest cracks. Because, in reality, my perfect family was just a beautifully crafted illusion that everyone wanted to believe in. My name is Lauren Parker, and I grew up in a world where money seemed endless. My father, Richard Parker, was a brilliant businessman who built his company from the ground up, turning it into a multi-million-dollar corporation. My mother, Evelyn, was the epitome of elegance. A woman who never had to worry about money, but spent it faster than anyone I had ever known. My father worked tirelessly and never let our family lack anything. Everything about our lives radiated wealth. A nearly 1,000 square foot mansion with a heated pool, a garage filled with 3 luxury cars, and my mother's wardrobe overflowing with designer dresses she wore once before tossing them aside. But to me, all that extravagance meant little, because the one thing I truly wanted, my parents' attention, was the one thing I could never have. My mother never worked a single day in her life, but she was a master at spending money. Richard, I need a new Chanel bag. Everyone at the club has one. I can't be the only one falling behind. I heard those words almost every week. My father never objected. He would simply pull out his credit card and hand it over. That habit was ingrained in our family. My mother demanded, my father provided, and the cycle continued. And me? I was raised by a revolving door of housekeepers and nannies who came and went as frequently as my mother's designer handbags. Most didn't stay long, perhaps because my mother always found a reason to fire them. But one of them was different. Hey Lynn. She joined us when I was 8 years old. Unlike the others, she didn't just do her job mechanically. She truly cared about me. She helped me with my homework, read me bedtime stories, and even taught me how to bake cookies on quiet Sunday afternoons. I still remember sitting in the kitchen, my hands covered in flour, as Helen patiently showed me how to shape each cookie perfectly. But happiness never lasted long in my house. One afternoon, while sitting on the staircase reading, I heard my mother screaming in the living room. "I saw you wearing my silk scarf." Her voice was filled with anger, while Helen's remained calm as she tried to explain. "Mrs. Parker, I never touched it. Maybe someone misplaced." "I don't care," my mother snapped. "I can't have a thief in my house. You need to leave, now." I knew Helen didn't do it. She would never steal anything. But in my mother's world, even the smallest excuse was enough to get rid of someone she no longer found suitable. That afternoon, I stood silently, watching Helen pack her bags and leave our enormous house. She didn't cry. She simply gave me a sad smile and brushed a strand of hair from my face. "You'll be okay, sweetheart." I didn't know how to answer. All I knew is that, from that moment on, I was truly alone. My father worked harder than anyone I had ever met. Late at night, I often saw him in his study, hunched over stacks of documents, the glow of his desk lamp illuminating the stress lines on his face. He never complained about exhaustion, never spoke about pressure. "If you want something in life, you build it yourself." That was his motto. I believed he was a man who could never be broken. But then, he did break. It happened on a winter evening when I had just turned 14. My mother was lounging on the couch in the living room, scrolling through her phone, giggling at something a club friend had said. I was upstairs, struggling through my math homework, when the phone rang. A sharp, piercing ring that sent a chill through me for reasons I couldn't explain. My mother answered. "Hello." The next second, she screamed. I had never heard her scream like that before. Her voice was sharp, panicked. I bolted down the stairs, my heart pounding. She stood there, her phone slipping from her fingers, crashing onto the marble floor. "Richard!" she gasped. "Richard had a heart attack. At his office." I don't remember much after that. I remember the icy feeling spreading through my chest as my mother drove like a madwoman to the hospital. I remember her stomping through the waiting room, demanding that the doctors do something, anything. But there was nothing left to do. My father had collapsed at his desk, a massive heart attack. No one had time to react. He was gone. His funeral was a perfect performance by my mother. She wore an expensive black dress, her makeup was flawless, and her tears fell at just the right moments. The funeral attendees murmured condolences, hugging her, offering words of comfort. But I knew, deep down, she wasn't mourning the loss of her husband. She was panicking over losing the man who funded her lavish lifestyle. I heard the late-night phone calls. "The lawyer said I can't access the full estate immediately? Why not?" My mother didn't cry in her bedroom out of grief for my father. She cried over the bank accounts she couldn't touch right away. I knew from that moment on, our lives would change, and I was right. A month after the funeral, my mother walked into my father's office. The large leather chair, the one my father had always sat in, now belonged to her. She swiveled in it slightly, a smug smile curling on her lips. "From now on, I'll be running this company." I stood at the doorway, unease creeping up my spine. My mother had never run anything before. She knew nothing about business, had never cared about my father's work. Yet, she was confident she could manage an entire empire. Her first board meeting was a disaster. She gathered the executives and declared, "We don't need to make things as complicated as Richard did. I trust my instincts. Let's cut out all the unnecessary expenses." Within weeks, she fired the CFO for being too negative. Then came the head of operations. One by one, the most experienced people left. The company my father's pride and legacy, was now being led by someone who didn't understand it at all. I overheard the whispers from employees. Contracts were being cancelled. Payments were late. I saw stacks of unpaid invoices piling up on her desk. She didn't even bother reading them. Yet, she continued shopping, attending high-end galas, pretending as if nothing had changed. I tried to talk to her. "Mom, the company is in trouble. You need someone experienced to help you manage it." She only laughed. "Lauren, you're too young to understand. I know what I'm doing." But she knew nothing. The company collapsed faster than I expected. Within a year, my mother had driven it into insurmountable debt. She scrambled to borrow money, mortgaged everything she could, but it wasn't enough. One day, I came home and found her sitting in the living room, holding a letter in her trembling hands. I already knew what it was. A notice of bankruptcy. Before I could speak, she threw the letter onto the table. "We still have the house, right?" 4 months later, we lost the house. Movers arrived, boxing up everything. Expensive furniture, the paintings my mother had collected, the designer gowns she had once bragged about. I stood in my bedroom, watching them pack away my childhood, feeling nothing but emptiness. My mother still refused to accept reality. "I'll figure something out. We'll buy it back, we just need a little time." But I knew we were never coming back. In the end, we had one thing left: my college fund. And I knew it was only a matter of time before she tried to take it. After losing the house, we moved into a small apartment in the suburbs. The kind of place my mother once looked down on. From a sprawling mansion with a heated pool and luxury cars in the garage, we were now crammed into a 2-bedroom unit with worn-out furniture and threadbare carpets. My mother never said it outright, but I knew she hated it. Yet, even as everything crumbled, she refused to let go of her spending habits. At first, she tried to maintain appearances, clinging to the illusion of wealth. She wore old designer clothes, carefully applied her makeup before stepping outside, pretending this was only temporary. But the money kept dwindling. One day, I came home and found her sitting at the kitchen table, a stack of documents in front of her. She was reading through paperwork about my college fund. I froze. "Lauren, you know we need to talk about this." Her voice was soft, but I immediately sensed the danger behind it. I sat down, my heart pounding. I had anticipated this moment. I knew it was coming. "You have a trust fund. Money your father left for you. We need to use it." I took a deep breath. "No, Mom. That money is for my education." She placed her hand over mine, her gaze gentle, but I saw the calculation in her eyes. "You don't understand, Lauren. We need that money to start over. I'll find a way to invest it, to fix everything. If we don't, we'll lose everything." I pulled my hand away. "We've already lost everything, Mom, and I can't let you take my future away from me." For the first time, her face hardened. "You're so selfish, Lauren. You're sitting on a pile of money while we're struggling." I felt the anger rise within me. "I'm not sitting on a pile of money. That's my college fund, Mom. Dad left it for me because he knew this would happen. He knew you'd spend everything." She slammed her hand on the table. "How dare you say that to me, after everything I've done for you?" I let out a bitter laugh. "What have you done for me? Besides driving this family into ruin?" She stared at me, her eyes filled with rage and hurt. But I felt no guilt. For the first time, I didn't feel guilty for speaking the truth. From that day on, my mother never mentioned the college fund again. But she changed tactics. Instead of demanding it outright, she used guilt as a weapon. "I sacrificed my whole life for you, Lauren. I gave up everything to take care of you, and this is how you repay me? I can't believe how cruel you are. Don't you love me at all?" The words came daily, chipping away at me like water eroding a stone. I knew I was right, but there were moments when I felt weak. Silent dinners, lingering looks of disappointment. She no longer treated me as her daughter. She treated me as a traitor. We didn't talk about anything except money. If I walked into the kitchen, she would let out a dramatic sigh. If I bought a new book, she would glance at it with disdain. I felt like a stranger in my own home. I knew I had to leave. I secretly applied to college. Not to a school nearby, not anywhere she could follow me. I chose a university 3 states away, a place where I could start over. A place where she couldn't control me anymore. When I received my acceptance letter, I didn't tell her right away. I hid it in my drawer, knowing that once she found out, she would try to stop me. But I couldn't stay here forever. I had to escape before she destroyed my future too. I left on an early August morning, just as the sun was rising. My mother didn't see me off. She didn't wish me luck. She just sat in the living room staring at her phone screen as if I no longer existed. I pulled my suitcase to the car, shut the door behind me, and didn't look back. College life wasn't easy, but at least it was a life I could control. I received a partial scholarship, but I still had to manage the rest on my own. I worked part-time at the campus library, tutored in the evenings, and survived on the cheapest meals I could find. Every month I planned my expenses down to the last cent. No designer clothes, no luxury vacations, no expensive dinners like before. I learned how to save, how to live simply, and most importantly, how to be independent. In the beginning I would check my phone, waiting for a message from my mother. But she never texted. The first time she called was 2 months after I left. "Lauren, do you have any idea how much I'm struggling? The rent is due, the bills are piling up. I can't handle this on my own." I closed my eyes, forcing myself to stay calm. "Mom, I don't have money. I'm barely managing to support myself." "But you have your college fund, can't you withdraw a little to help your own mother?" I clenched my phone tightly. "Mom, I've told you before. That money is for my education." She was silent for a few seconds, then sighed. "Fine, just let me starve then." I hung up. That was the first of many calls, all following the same script. "Lauren, the electricity is about to be shut off." "Lauren, I don't have enough money for groceries." "Lauren, I really need help." At first I felt guilty. After all, she was my mother. But then I realized. She never once asked about my life at school, never once checked if I was okay. She only called when she needed money. I slowly learned how to say no. Not because I was heartless, but because I knew that if I gave in once, she would never stop. I graduated with honors. On graduation day, I stood in the middle of the campus courtyard, watching other students being embraced and congratulated by their families. No one was there for me. My mother didn't come. She didn't even call. I didn't know what I had expected. But no matter what, I was proud of myself. After graduation, I got a job at a financial firm in New York. The salary wasn't high at first, but I knew I was on the right path. I rented a small apartment, continued saving, and worked hard. I climbed the corporate ladder quickly. Within 3 years, I was promoted twice and finally had a stable life. And that's when my mother came back. This time, her call sounded different. No excessive complaints, no emotional manipulation. "Lauren, I know how hard you've worked to achieve everything you have today. I'm proud of you." I almost couldn't believe my ears. For the first time, she said something that wasn't about money. Then she continued. "I don't want to be a burden to you. I just need a little support to get by. Just a small amount. I promise I won't take advantage of you." I thought about it for a long time. I couldn't completely abandon her, but I also couldn't let her control my life again. In the end, I decided to send her $1,000 a month. Not a lot, but enough for her to live on. At first, she accepted the money without complaints. Her calls became lighter. She started asking about my job, my life, the things I had accomplished. The silent dinners we once had turned into conversations that were almost pleasant. I still kept my distance, but at least our relationship had become more civil. However, I never forgot the past. I knew exactly who my mother was, and I knew she would never truly change. I had set a boundary, and this time, I would never let her cross it. I had grown used to my mother's calls. They came regularly each month, always starting with pleasant small talk before smoothly shifting to the familiar topic: money. At first, she kept to our agreement. Every month, I sent her $1,000, and our relationship remained at a safe distance. But then, she started finding more subtle ways to ask for help. "Lauren, I found this lovely little restaurant that you would love. Let's have dinner, just the two of us." We met at a mid-range Italian place. The meal wasn't too expensive and I was happy to cover the bill. But then, these dinners became a habit. She started expanding our family dinners by inviting one or two relatives. "Oh, you don't mind, do you, Lauren? Family time is important after all." The bill crept up. From $50 to $150, then to $300. But I said nothing. I thought that if this was the cost of keeping a peaceful relationship, maybe I could tolerate it. But I was wrong. 3 years after I started supporting my mother, she called me one April morning. "Lauren, I've been thinking a lot about my birthday this year." I smiled, mentally checking the calendar. "I was just about to ask what you'd like to do." "We could have a nice dinner, somewhere you like, just with close family." "Oh, that's so sweet of you." Her voice was gentle. "But this time, I want to plan it myself. You just need to come and enjoy. No need to worry about anything." A toehold. Something in her tone made me uneasy, but I brushed it off, telling myself that maybe she just wanted to be more independent. I had no reason to be suspicious. Until I received a text message on the day of her birthday. "Come at 7 p.m. Address, the Grand Royale." I stared at the screen. The Grand Royale? That was the most upscale restaurant in the city, where a single appetizer cost a few $100s. A chill ran down my spine. When I walked into the restaurant that evening, my unease instantly turned into horror. A grand private banquet hall, dazzling under massive crystal chandeliers. Long tables covered in white linen, expensive wine glasses, and menus without listed prices. At least 30 people were in the room, all relatives and my mother's friends. My head spun. What had she done? She rushed over, embracing me tightly, her smile radiant. "Lauren, you made it! Happy birthday to me!" I pulled back, trying to keep my voice steady. "Mom? What is this?" "Ugh, I just wanted to have a big celebration for once. After everything, I deserve a special night." I scanned the room. Premium champagne, fine red wine, plates of Wagyu steak. I turned back to my mother, a cold sensation creeping through me. "Mom, who's paying for this party?" Her smile didn't waver. "Lauren, of course you are. You always take care of me, don't you?" The air in the room froze. People turned to look at me, waiting for my response. A knot tightened in my stomach. This wasn't just a dinner. This was a trap. She hadn't told me about the party because she knew I would refuse. And now, in front of 30 people, she was forcing me to foot a bill I hadn't agreed to. I looked around, forcing myself to stay calm. "I'm sorry, but I can't pay for this dinner." The room fell into silence. My mother stiffened. "Lauren, don't joke." I shook my head. "I'm not joking. I didn't agree to pay for a party I knew nothing about." "But you always pay!" Her voice shrieked in disbelief. I took a deep breath. Yes, I used to pay, but that was when I had a choice. Today, you took that choice away from me. The entire room fell silent. Some relatives exchanged uneasy glances. Everyone knew I was right. I reached into my wallet, pulled out $200, and placed it on the table. "This is for my meal. The rest? Good luck." I turned and walked out before anyone could react. I didn't look back. I didn't hear my mother's footsteps chasing after me. I only heard the sound of my heels clicking against the marble floor. The only sound of freedom. I had just stepped into my hotel room, not even taking off my shoes, when my phone rang. "Mom." I knew this call was coming, but I didn't expect it this soon. I stared at the screen for a few seconds before answering. "Lauren, what the hell do you think you're doing?" Her voice was sharp with rage, completely devoid of the sweet pleading tone she used whenever she wanted something. I was clear I'm not paying for that party. Do you even know what happened after you left? Do you know how everyone had to split the bill? I stayed silent, waiting for her to continue. Everyone had to pay nearly $400 each, she screamed. Do you understand? They had to pay because of you. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. No, Mom, they didn't pay because of me, they paid because of you, because you threw a party without telling me, because you put me in a situation where I had no choice. You are the most ungrateful child I have ever seen, after everything I've done for you. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. I knew it was time to do what I should have done long ago. Mom, I can't keep doing this. What do you mean? Her voice dropped, cautious now. I opened my laptop, my hands steady for the first time in years. I'm cutting off your financial support. Starting today, I won't be sending you another cent. Silence stretched across the line. For a moment, I thought she had hung up. Then, her voice came back, cold as ice. You can't do this to me. You promised to take care of me. I clicked cancel on the automatic bank transfer. I never promised that, Mom. I helped you when I could, but I won't be used anymore. She screamed. You think you're so great, don't you? You think just because you have a good job you can turn your back on your family? You are a disgusting, selfish, greedy person, Lauren. I hung up. I didn't stop there. Within the next hour, I canceled the internet service I had been paying for, called the car dealership and arranged to have my old car, which was still in my name, repossessed. Blocked her number. Sent one final message to the family group chat. As of today, I will no longer be providing financial support to Mom or anyone else in this family. If you have any issues, take care of them yourselves. Best of luck. I hit send. Less than a minute later, the notifications started flooding in. Aunt Karen. Lauren, what are you doing? Your mother raised you for so many years, and this is how you repay her? Uncle Mark, you're turning yourself into a disgrace to this family. Your father would be so disappointed in you. Cousin Rachel. Don't ever expect an invitation to my wedding. I don't want someone like you there on my special day. The messages poured in, each one condemning me. But what stood out to me the most was that not a single person offered to help my mother. Not one person said, "Don't worry, Evelyn, I'll take care of you." Not one person said, "I'll support her." They were only angry because I had stopped paying for them. In the weeks that followed, my phone kept ringing with calls from unknown numbers. I didn't answer. I heard from an old friend that my mother had to move into a smaller apartment, that she was telling everyone how her daughter had abandoned her after all the sacrifices she had made. But no one helped her. None of the people who once praised her, who depended on my money, were willing to give her a single cent. She had always seen me as an endless wallet, the only one she could control. But this time, I had truly left. I didn't feel guilty. I only felt relieved. After cutting off my mother financially, my life entered an entirely new chapter. No more guilt-ridden phone calls, no more manipulative messages, no more feeling burdened every time I got paid. For the first time in years, I felt truly free. Instead of worrying about when my mother would call demanding money, I focused on myself. My career flourished. I was promoted to a project management position, handling bigger contracts and earning the salary I deserved. With the money that used to be drained by my mother, I finally invested in my own future. I moved into a spacious apartment in the heart of the city, bought a new car instead of the old one I had reluctantly given her, and took time to travel, enjoying the life I had worked so hard to build. And most importantly, I no longer felt guilty. I no longer woke up each morning with the anxiety of wondering how my mother would manipulate me next. I no longer questioned if I was a bad daughter for setting boundaries. Because, in the end, I understood that love is not manipulation. 6 months after I cut ties, my mother tried to contact me again. The first message came on a Saturday evening, as I sipped a glass of wine on my balcony after a long work week. Mom. Lauren. I miss you, can we meet? I stared at the screen. A part of me wanted to believe she had changed. But I knew my mother. I didn't reply. The next day, another message arrived. Mom. Lauren, I was wrong about so many things, I don't want to lose you. I almost responded, but then I remembered all the times before. The times she pretended to be sorry just to drag me back into the same toxic cycle. I couldn't do that to myself again. 3 days later, she called. I hesitated but answered. Lauren, I'm so happy you picked up. Her voice was warm, gentle, but I could hear the hesitation in her words. I just want to see you, just for a coffee. I stayed silent. I really want to start over. I closed my eyes, steadying my voice. Mom. Do you understand why I left? She sighed. I know, I've made mistakes. But are you really going to abandon me forever? I felt a simmering anger rise inside me. You still think I abandoned you, Mom? Have you ever taken responsibility for what you've done? She was silent. I helped you for years. I paid the bills, bought you a car, supported you financially, and you never once showed gratitude. You just wanted more, and when I said no, you made me the bad guy. She took a sharp breath. Lauren, I have no one else but you. I gripped the phone tighter. You have an entire family. But you never ask them for help. Why? She didn't answer right away. But I knew why. Because none of them wanted to be used the way I had been. Mom, I am not a bank. I am not your long-term financial plan. If you truly want me in your life, you need to understand that I will no longer be your wallet. She took a deep breath. So, what are you saying? I'm saying that if you want a relationship with me, it has to be an equal one. No more money, no more manipulation, just mother and daughter. The silence stretched. I had no idea what she was thinking. Then, finally, she let out a small laugh. You're forcing me to suffer in poverty. I closed my eyes, hurt but not surprised. Still her. Still that mindset. Then you have your answer, I said calmly. I hung up. And this time, I didn't feel guilty. A year later, I heard that she had moved into a smaller apartment. She still told everyone that I was the ungrateful daughter who abandoned her. But this time, no one cared anymore. No one helped her. No one lent her money. The people who once benefited from my generosity disappeared the moment the money was gone. I no longer kept track of her life. I focused on myself. My career, my friends, the trips and experiences I had missed out on while being trapped in her cycle. I had stepped out of my mother's shadow. I had reclaimed my life. And I was never going back. Lauren Parker's story is not just a family tragedy. It's a profound lesson on personal boundaries and the value of independence. In reality, many people find themselves in similar situations, being financially exploited by family under the guise of love and duty. But helping doesn't mean sacrificing yourself. Lauren learned to say no, to set boundaries, and, in the end, she found freedom. Family should not be a financial burden, and real love is not manipulation. Sometimes, walking away is the only way to save yourself. What do you think about Lauren Parker's story? Do you sympathize with her, or do you think she was too harsh on her mother? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to follow the channel for more emotional real-life stories about family, love, and personal boundaries. I used to think the worst kind of betrayal came from a lover. I was wrong. The real pain is when the very people who gave you life and raised you are the ones suffocating you with debts that aren't even in their names. I thought I was being strong by carrying everything on my shoulders, but turns out, to them, I was just a walking wallet. No thank yous, no looks of appreciation. Just cold texts at the end of every month, as if I were a bank clerk who missed a payment deadline. And if you're reading this, maybe you're wondering, how did someone like me let things go this far? My name is Evelyn Carter, I'm 28 years old, a financial advisor in Denver, Colorado. I know how to balance budgets, when to invest, and when to cut losses. I hold 3 professional certifications, have a stable job, and I bought a small apartment on my own at age 26. On paper, I'm the kind of daughter parents would be proud of, but reality is different. To them, I'm not a daughter, I'm a second income stream they never had to work for. I was the only one in the family who knew how to save. Back in high school, I worked part-time at a local grocery store, studying, helping out, and collecting tips just to buy used textbooks. Meanwhile, my younger brother Jason, he's 30 now, was always called the undiscovered genius. He dropped out of college in his sophomore year because he lost his inspiration, then drifted through a series of odd jobs. Delivery driver, insurance sales, failed streamer. Until eventually, he moved back in with our parents, like he'd never left. And me? I graduated on a full scholarship and landed my first job at an investment firm right after turning 22. I moved into a small rental in the suburbs and started sending money home every month, first for groceries, then car repairs for Dad, later for utilities, and finally for the mortgage. Every time my mom called, her voice was tired, full of weary emotion. "Evelyn, this month's been a bit tough. Could you send us a little early this time?" And I always did, no questions asked. I believed it was the right thing to do as a daughter. But the more I gave, the more I felt like I was pouring water into a bottomless bucket. Jason never changed. He sat at home all day, buying video games, ordering takeout, and complaining about how unfair life was. Meanwhile, I skipped vacations, canceled outings with friends, and even declined better health insurance just to keep sending money home. One day, I gently asked my mom, without accusing anyone, whether Jason had any plans to get a job. She sighed and gave the usual response. "He's trying. You don't understand the emotional pressure he's under." As for Dad, he never directly talked about money, but every time I visited, he would let slip some backhanded compliment. "Daughters make more money than men these days, lucky we've got Evelyn." It sounded like praise, but I knew what it meant. They didn't thank me, they assumed I should be doing it. I was the one with money, so it was my duty. I used to think, what's wrong with helping family? And it's true. Nothing if it's actually helping. But when you become the default name every time a bill is due, when people remember you only when they need a wire transfer, that's no longer love. That's exploitation. I still remember that feeling, the first time I refused to send money to fix the old washing machine. My mom went silent for 2 days, then sent me a long 3-paragraph message. Not one word about how I was doing. Just guilt-laced sentences. "It's okay, I understand. You probably have your own life now and don't think about us anymore. I'm just a little sad, Evelyn." I stared at that message all afternoon, mind blank. I didn't reply right away. I knew if I did, I'd cave. I'd send the money. I'd feed the cycle again. That's when I began to realize I wasn't living for myself anymore. Every financial decision I made revolved around one question: how much will I have left if Mom suddenly calls? I skipped buying a plane ticket to visit my best friend's wedding in Seattle. I cut my evening yoga class. I even put off getting dental insurance. All for the sake of those mid-month calls from Mom, or those just borrowing a few $100 texts from Jason. I've never once heard Jason apologize, not once. He'd just text things like, "Need some money this month, can you send it early? I'm behind on stuff." No thank you, no how are you, just like I was an ATM with a "be kind" button. I'm great with numbers, I analyze corporate finances for a living. Yet it took me nearly a decade to realize I had let myself become an unlimited investment for my family while getting zero return. People say family is where you return to, but what if that home only calls you back when they need cash? What if they stay quiet when you succeed, but lash out when you refuse to help? I know the next chapter of this story won't be easy. I know there's going to be a breaking point, and maybe it's coming soon. But here, at the beginning, I want you to understand one thing. I didn't start with resentment. I started with kindness. And they smothered it with their blatant dependence. I don't know the exact moment Jason became the favorite child. Maybe it was the day he got into the state university before dropping out 2 years later. Maybe it was when he told Mom, "I need time to find myself," and she cried like he'd spoken some profound truth. I never got that kind of grace. Not a pat on the back when I got a scholarship, not a single congratulation when I got my first promotion. During dinner on my 25th birthday, the same week I became a senior financial advisor, my dad just said, "Wow, companies really do hire young people these days." Jason could throw away every opportunity and still remain their golden child, but the moment I declined one financial request, I was suddenly ungrateful. The rules in our house were never fair. But what makes me angrier is how long it took me to see that. Every holiday, every dinner conversation centered around Jason. Jason's thinking of learning coding. Jason just finished a great book. Jason has a new startup idea. And me? I was always sidelined, treated like an extra guest in the very home I helped save from foreclosure. One dinner, while we were all eating, my mom casually said something that stung more than she realized. "My daughter is smart, but Jason has that artistic soul no one truly understands." I nearly choked. Jason was sitting there, legs on the chair, glued to his phone. He had an artistic soul? Really? A man who hadn't kept a job longer than 3 months? My dad always played the calm father figure, but he never once stood up for me. The last time I asked if Jason could chip in for the electric bill since he's working again, Dad frowned. "Evelyn, you just don't understand the pressure of not finding your path yet." I wanted to scream. What about the pressure of silently supporting an entire family? What about staying up until 2 in the morning to finish reports for clients in New York? But I didn't. I still foolishly believed that if I just tried a little harder, they'd see me. That my sacrifices would be recognized. Jason wasn't just coddled, he was constantly excused. Last year, he took my mom's credit card without asking and spent nearly $1,200 on gaming equipment. When I found out, I thought surely my parents would be furious. But no. Mom just sighed. "He's probably stressed. Just needed something to relax." Relax? With someone else's money? With the money I had wired to her the day before? I remember not saying anything that day. I just stood up, grabbed my bag and left. Neither Jason nor my parents tried to stop me. Maybe to them, I was just a walking machine. And if that machine was overheating, then sure, let it rest for a bit. Every time I tried to speak up, they used their usual trick, flipping the script. "So now you're blaming your brother? Families should love each other, not keep score. If it's such a burden, then don't help." But still sent a money request the following week. I feel like I'm slowly sinking in a swamp of my own making. Fueled by silence. By never saying no. Jason was becoming more carefree by the day. He bought a Persian cat for nearly $600 and posted a picture online with the caption, "My baby." Meanwhile, I was debating whether to cut the TV service this month to cover my mom's medication. I don't know if Jason has ever felt guilty, but one thing I'm certain of, he's never felt responsible. Every mistake was blamed on a rough patch, mental pressure, or simply, "That's just how he is." One time, I came home after wrapping up a major project. I casually told Mom, "I got a bonus this month, so I'm planning a short weekend trip to Austin." She stopped rinsing the vegetables and turned to me like I'd just announced I was signing the house over to a stranger. "What about the water bill from last month? And the gas?" "I already mentioned that." Jason's also been feeling unwell, not eating regularly. I laughed. Not the joyful kind, the kind you laugh when someone stabs one more time into a trust already rotted. "I thought I'd take a little break, Mom. I'm sure you understand." "Sure, you have your own life after all." That line again. As if I were selfish for wanting to spend my own money on myself. As if I were wrong for not refueling a car that's been running for years without maintenance. Jason was the golden child. The one allowed to fail without consequence, and I, Evelyn Carter, was the one expected to make up for all his mistakes. But every limit has its breaking point, and I was starting to feel the cracks. What I didn't know then was just how soon those cracks would split wide open. At first I thought it was temporary. One month, my parents fell behind on the electric bill because of some billing issue. The next month it was mom's prescription that hadn't been approved by insurance. Then Jason accidentally dropped his phone and needed a new one to submit job applications. I still remember mom's first words when she brought up money. "Just this once, Evelyn. I promise. A family shouldn't let you carry everything alone." I believed her. Like a kid still believing in Santa Claus. And like a well-laid trap, that promise never materialized. That one time quickly turned into 2, then 3, then 10. From electric bills to gas bills, then plumbing repairs. Eventually, every visit home came with a new bill, placed in front of me, accompanied by mom's hopeful eyes, dad's silent nod, and Jason's relieved sigh. I started feeling suffocated. When I first moved into my new apartment in downtown Denver, I had plans. Monthly savings deposits, dividend investments, a few trips a year. But those dreams quickly got replaced with recurring transfers. $120 for electricity, $180 for meds, $300 for roof repairs, and the peak? $950 monthly to help with the mortgage. No contracts, no repayment promises. Just one thing always present in those transactions: the unspoken expectation that I would keep giving. Because I always had. I used to think, if I don't help, who will? Then I realized, they didn't need anyone else. They had me. And I was drowning in that role without even knowing. Every month, Mom would call with a tearful voice. "Evelyn, I'm sorry to bother you, but we're really struggling this month." And I, foolish as ever, would open my banking app, hit transfer, erase the notification of my shrinking balance. Jason stayed the same, no job, no plan. Lately, he even bought a new gaming chair and monitor worth over $1,000. I found the receipt while cleaning out my old room during a visit. When I asked, he shrugged. "I need a comfortable setup to focus on job hunting." I couldn't believe it. He lived in my parents' house rent-free, while I, working 50 hours a week, had to cancel a trip to Chicago with friends because I couldn't afford the hotel. One Wednesday afternoon during an online meeting, I got a text from Dad. "Evelyn, your mom says the washer broke, probably needs replacing. Can you check on that?" No question if I had the money, no thank you for all the previous help, just a simple check on that. As if I were the family's 24/7 tech and finance support desk. I once thought I was strong because I could earn money. Now I see I was weak for not knowing how to say no. You know what's scary? One day I typed my banking password without even thinking. Because I was so used to logging in only to withdraw, never to build. I had planned to buy a new car, a Subaru Forester I'd had my eye on for years. But when I was ready to place the deposit, Mom called. "Jason's got back pain, needs physical therapy. Can you front us this month?" I put the phone down, sat silently for 10 minutes. Then transferred the money. That car remained just a photo in my collection. Dad always kept a calm tone during calls. "Don't overthink it, honey. Family's about helping one another. Everyone has a role, and you're just doing yours." A role? Then what's Jason's? What's Mom's? Is Dad's role just to stand by silently while I burn out? I've lost count of how many travel promo emails I've deleted from friends. I don't remember the last time I treated myself to a nice dinner. I wake up at 6 every morning, work until evening, then run errands, send money, respond to Mom's texts. "Honey, gas prices went up, we may need a bit more this month." What's worse is, none of them ever asked if I was okay. No one asked if I was tired, needed anything, or simply wanted to live for myself. Just once. I realized I wasn't their daughter anymore. I was their backup financial plan, their emergency fund, the one person they could always count on. Without ever saying thank you. One night I looked at my personal expense tracker, something I maintained monthly like second nature as a financial advisor, and I was stunned to see nearly 65% of my income over the past 10 months had gone to family support. I couldn't even remember the last time I bought something just because I wanted to. Not needed, not to help, just wanted. Simple, yet strangely luxurious. A quiet question formed in my mind, sharp as a knife to the throat. If I stopped paying, would they still keep me in their lives? I didn't know. But I was starting to want the answer. No matter how much it hurt. Because I was reaching my final limit. That Sunday afternoon, the sun was blazing, like someone had cranked the heat up to burn away whatever was left of me. I had just wrapped up a grueling week with 3 financial projects due before deadline. My left wrist still ached from too much typing. I should have been resting, sipping coffee, watching an old movie, but instead, I was standing at the doorstep of the house I once called home, holding a large grocery bag, rice, milk, meat, and the joint supplements Mom always asked for. All paid for with the money I had saved for a weekend getaway with friends. The moment I stepped into the house, I sensed something was off. There was no sound from the TV like usual, and no smell of anything cooking in the kitchen. My mom, Susan, sat on the sofa, arms crossed, eyes cold as ice. My dad, Charles, stood by the window, looking out with a tense face like he was bracing for a verdict. Jason slumped in a chair, phone in hand playing games, feet propped up on the table. I set the grocery bag down and said, trying to stay calm, "Mom, I bought enough food for the whole week, and I got the exact joint supplements you asked for." No one replied. Not a single word. Just a slight nod from Jason, eyes glued to his screen. Then Mom spoke, her voice sharp like a blade. "Sit down. We need to talk." I hesitated for a split second. My gut told me this wouldn't be a simple conversation. I pulled out a chair and sat down, spine straight, like I was facing a high-stakes client. Mom didn't sugarcoat it. "Your father and I have talked this through, we can't keep going like this." I frowned. "What do you mean? I'm still helping out." Dad cut in, voice tightly controlled. "We need you to take over the rest of the mortgage, all of it. Every month." I froze. Numbers rushed through my head like a financial report just landed in my inbox. The mortgage was over $1,400 a month. I'd already been covering nearly $900 monthly for over a year. Now they wanted me to pay it all? I looked at each of them, one by one. They weren't joking. No shrugs, no guilty looks. Just cold silence and looming expectation. I let out a hollow laugh, disbelief laced in my tone. "You mean, I'm supposed to pay the entire mortgage? What about Jason?" Jason didn't even look up. "I can't right now. Besides, you're the one who makes money." I turned to Mom. I'd given enough. Almost 2/3 of my salary goes into this house every month. I have a life too. I can't keep doing this. Mom lifted her chin, eyes burning, voice sharp. "You live alone? No kids, no husband? What's the money for? This family is struggling. How can you be so selfish?" I stood up, my voice cracking with frustration. "Selfish? I gave up holidays, savings, even my own health to take care of this family. And now you call me selfish?" Jason smirked, eyes still on his screen. "Come on, sis, don't be dramatic. It's just money. You have it." I turned sharply to him, voice breaking. "What have you done for this house besides gaming and spending other people's money? Do you even know how many hours I work every month? Have you ever even tried applying for a job?" Mom jumped to her feet, pointing her finger at me. "Don't you dare insult your brother. He's trying. All you ever do is brag about what you've done." I stepped back, took a deep breath, fists clenched. No one in this house has ever thanked me. Not once. Dad stepped forward, his voice low and dull. "We're not here to thank each other. This is family. Everyone has to play their part." I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that echoed through the still room. "Then what's my part now? Pay every single bill so everyone else can live comfortably while I tighten my belt?" Jason finally looked up, annoyed. "If you don't want to help, just say it. Stop acting like some saint." I turned away, unable to look at them a second longer. I grabbed the bag still sitting untouched on the table. No one stopped me, not a single one. But as I reached for the doorknob, Mom screamed behind me. Get out, and don't ever come back if you walk through that door." I paused and turned around. Her eyes were blazing red, lips trembling with rage. I answered slowly and clearly, "That's the easiest thing I've ever done." Then I opened the door, walked out, and shut it behind me. That door closed behind me, but their voices still echoed. I didn't look back. Not once. And that was the moment I knew I had crossed the line. I was no longer their burden bearer. No longer their walking wallet. There was only me now. Evelyn Carter, and the part of my life I had never truly lived. I moved into my new apartment on a cold morning in early March. The frost clung to the moving truck's windows, but I felt lighter than I had in years. Like I'd been carrying a backpack full of rocks and someone had finally told me I could set it down. My apartment wasn't big. One bedroom, a living room, an open kitchen, and a small balcony overlooking the south side of Denver. But it was mine. Every corner, every chair, every light was my choice. No heavy memories, no passive-aggressive sighs or guilt-laced tones from my mother. No Jason, lounging on the couch eating takeout I paid for. I remember that first night clearly. I sat on the floor, back against the wall, eating instant noodles, staring up at the clean white ceiling, and laughed. Not from joy. From shock. I couldn't believe I'd actually done it. I had left. I'd walked through the door my mother slammed shut behind me, with the words, "Get out, and don't ever come back." And I hadn't gone back. For the next 6 months, I didn't answer calls from my parents. I didn't reply to Jason's texts. I blocked all 3 on social media, changed my personal email, and canceled every auto payment I had set up for their bills. For the first time in years, every dollar I earned was mine. In the mornings, I woke up to pure silence. No early calls from mom asking for transfers, no nagging about family financial pressure or duties of being a daughter. I brewed coffee, opened the window, let the breeze run through my hair. And no one could make me feel guilty for living like that. I started restructuring my life the same way I used to restructure clients' finances. I created a clear personal budget, reset my savings goals, and set aside a small fund each month just to spoil myself. A new dress, dinner at the Italian restaurant I'd missed 3 years ago, a weekend trip to Boulder. These small things, once luxuries, became declarations. I was no longer living in emotional debt. And most importantly, I wasn't afraid of silence anymore. 6 months ago, every phone buzz sent my heart racing. Every message from mom felt like a ticking bomb. Now, I could mute notifications and toss my phone onto the couch without a second thought. I remember one Saturday, working at a cafe, when my screen lit up with an unknown number. My gut said it was someone from home. I didn't pick up. Simple as that. I wasn't the Evelyn I used to be, the one who spiraled into guilt at the slightest hint of mom is upset. Now, I knew their sadness wasn't my fault, and if they fell into hardship from their own bad decisions, it wasn't my job to save them. Some nights, I lay on the sofa, watching the soft yellow light cast shadows on the ceiling, thinking about the years I'd been drained and felt stunned. I had lived in the shadow of a family that used love like a double-edged sword. And I never realized, when I started bleeding. One day, walking through the weekend market, I saw a woman about mom's age arguing loudly with her daughter about college fees. The girl looked around 20, exhausted, eyes red, and for a second, I saw myself 5 years ago. Clutching grocery bags, forcing a smile while the world cracked on my shoulders. I didn't step in, but I clenched my fist to keep from crying. Freedom doesn't arrive with fireworks. It shows up in small details. In the moment I open my fridge and know everything inside was bought with my own hands. Not with what was left after caring for others. In doing laundry at midnight without getting scolded. In the first full night's sleep I'd had in years. 6 months passed, and I finally started to feel normal. The kind of normal you hear about in fairy tales. A world where no one owes anyone, where love isn't traded for cash, and where you can just be. Without proving a damn thing. But that was also when the first call from the past came. A message from my father. Just 10 words. Evelyn, why haven't you transferred the mortgage payment this month? I stared at the screen, my blood freezing in my veins. They still thought I was just temporarily upset, that I would eventually come back, swipe my card, and resume the old game. They still believed I was the Evelyn they could manipulate with tired lines about duty, respect, and responsibility. I didn't reply, not right away. I set the phone down on the table, poured myself a glass of red wine, and stepped onto the balcony. The cool evening breeze brushed against my skin. I took a deep breath and smiled. Because I knew this was only the beginning. My father's message still sat there, cold and indifferent, as if the past 6 months had never happened. Evelyn, why haven't you transferred the mortgage payment this month? No greeting, no checking in, not even a how are you, just a cleverly disguised command under the mask of concern. I stared at those words for a long time, not out of shock, but pure fury. I had lived freely for 6 months, without being followed, without drowning in guilt, and with one line, the old darkness surged back as if it had never left. I didn't reply, not at that moment. But my mind had already started working, just like it always did when something felt off in a client's financial report. A question sliced through my thoughts like a knife. If I stop paying, where will they get the money to cover the mortgage? The answer should have been simple. They'll figure it out themselves. But I knew my parents too well. Jason didn't even do the dishes, let alone earn a paycheck. I grabbed my laptop and searched for the email from the bank, the one I used to handle their mortgage payments for the past 2 years. My temples throbbed. My heart pounded as I typed Crawford Mortgage into the search bar, the name of their lending company. I called, and, I swear, that call shattered every last illusion I had left. Hi, my name is Evelyn Carter. I used to assist with mortgage payments for the home at 1947 Elm Grove Street. I haven't been involved for a few months, but I'd like to check the account status. Is that possible? The representative verified my information. I heard the click of a keyboard, light hold music playing on the line. But all I could hear was dread. A few minutes later the rep returned, voice gentle but firm. Miss Carter, that mortgage account is currently delinquent. By over 8 months. I went numb. Did you say 8 months? Yes. The most recent payment was a small partial amount made about 7.5 months ago. Since then, there have been no full payments. They've received their final warning. If the account isn't brought current within the next 2 weeks, we'll initiate foreclosure proceedings. I sank back in my chair, eyes wide, mind spinning. 8 months? I had kept sending money through the 5th month. They told me it was for the house mortgage, and I wired it. No questions asked. So where did that money go? There was only one possibility: they pocketed it. My parents, the ones who preached morals, who shouted that I was ungrateful, who claimed family is about helping each other. They had taken my money. And didn't even use it for their own home. I didn't know if I felt hurt, angry, or just plain betrayed. Every emotion swirled in my chest, building into an unstoppable storm. I didn't call Mom. I didn't call Dad. I called Jason. It rang only 3 times before he answered. You finally called, Mom's freaking out. I got straight to the point. The money I sent. For months, where did it go? Silence. Long and heavy. Not because he didn't understand, but because he didn't know what excuse to make up. I'll ask again. Where did my mortgage money go? You're blowing this out of proportion. They needed it for other stuff too. And you're living like a princess in that fancy apartment. You wouldn't understand. I live like a princess? I snapped, voice shaking with rage. And what do you all do? Live off your sister's money and call it love? Jason tried to regain control. You know they're struggling. You pulled out when they needed you most. Now you're going to let us lose everything? I pulled out because you turned me into a bottomless wallet. I hung up before he could say another word. My grip on the phone was so tight I thought I might crush it. Less than 10 seconds later my mom called. I answered. Evelyn, you don't understand. I know I was wrong not to explain, but at the time we needed meds, the roof was leaking. Don't lie to me. I cut her off. My voice so cold it startled even me. I sent that money for the mortgage. Do you know what they told me? The account is 8 months past due. 8 months, Mom. Well, I skipped breakfast to send you more. Why? Why would you do that? She stayed silent. I continued, slow and deliberate, each word hammering into what little trust remained. Don't ever call me a devoted daughter again. You turned your own child into the victim of your sad little play. Dad took the phone. His voice was pleading. Sweetheart, we can talk this through. I'm sorry, I was wrong. But please, don't let the bank take the house. We'll lose everything. I laughed coldly. Not we. That's your choice. Me, I was just the ATM you all drained dry. I ended the call, blocked the number. I sat there, watching the balcony lights flicker in the night wind, feeling as if someone had scooped every organ out of my body. But beneath the fury, something else was rising. Clarity. Yes, I lost money. But what I would never lose again was myself. I didn't sleep at all that night. My phone buzzed non-stop with missed calls from Mom, texts from Dad, and a few self-righteous messages from Jason. Half angry, half smug, like I was the traitor who abandoned a drowning family. I read every line but didn't respond. I didn't cry. I didn't tremble. I just felt cold. A dry, hollow kind of cold that spread from my spine to the tips of my fingers. It wasn't pain anymore. It was complete detachment. The next morning I woke up early, made coffee and looked in the mirror. My face was stone still. Gone was the woman who used to agonize over whether she should send a few $100 more to her mom because Jason needed to see a doctor. Gone was the old Evelyn, the one who carried the whole family in silence, only to be tossed aside like a rag the moment she dared to breathe for herself. I hit the dial button. This time, I was the one making the call. Jason picked up first. His voice was groggy, like he'd just rolled out of bed at noon. Why are you calling again? Mom's freaking out. The bank already called. If you're not going to help, then... I cut him off, my voice steady and sharp as a blade. I'm not calling to hear your drama. I'm calling to say one last thing. And after this, it's over. Jason went silent. I continued. I contacted the bank. I know. 8 months without a single payment? While you were still accepting money from me. I'm not stupid, Jason. You're blowing this out of proportion. It's not just about that. Shut up, I snapped, cutting him off for the first time in my life without a hint of guilt. I don't need a reason. I don't need an excuse. I'm telling you this. From now on, I won't be sending another cent. Not today, not next month, never again. You can't do that. I can, and I will. It's time you all dealt with the consequences. I hung up, not giving him the chance to say another word. Less than 10 minutes later my mom called. I knew she would, and I knew the conversation would be ugly. But this time, I didn't avoid it. Evelyn, I'm sorry, but you don't understand how serious this is. If we lose the house, It's not that I don't understand, it's that I understand perfectly. For 3 years I drained myself to keep that house standing, while you pocketed the money. What are you saying? I'm not that kind of person. You're not? Then what happened to the money I sent every month? Why didn't it go to the bank? Why did I have to find out on my own instead of you telling me from the start? I just meant to borrow it for a while. I was going to pay it back. I laughed dryly. Pay it back? After all these years, you think I still believe in your later? I heard Dad's voice in the background, still trying to stay calm. Evelyn, I know this has gone too far, but now's not the time for blame. We need to stick together and get through this. No, Dad, there's no we anymore. From the moment you lied to me, used my money without asking, the ties were broken. You're overreacting. As a daughter, you should understand. Enough, I nearly shouted. Don't say another word about values, duty, or love. None of you have lived by any of it. I've stayed quiet long enough. I'm done. My mom choked up. So, you're really going to let us lose the house? I exhaled. Cold and steady. What is that house? A place where I only mattered when I pulled out my wallet? A place where I was called selfish for trying to hold on to a shred of freedom? If that's what it is, then yes. Let it be lost. I gave birth to you, raised you, gave you everything. You gave birth to me. Yes. But I've been raising this family for nearly a decade. I gave everything. My time, money, health, youth. And in the end, what did I get? Lies. Disrespect. No, Mom. Blood doesn't give you a license to exploit someone. Her voice suddenly turned angry. Fine, then live with your decision. Don't expect to come back, don't expect forgiveness. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. I don't need forgiveness from people who've never felt remorse. I hung up, no tears, no inner struggle, just silence, heavy and clear. 1 minute later, Jason texted me. You're ungrateful. You'll regret this. We gave you everything. I took a screenshot, not to reply, but to remember. To remind myself, I didn't make any of this up. They truly believed I was a walking ATM. An infinite resource. There was nothing left to say. Nothing left to prove. I had drawn the line, and for the first time, I was defending it, with everything I had left. I turned off my phone, got up, stepped onto the balcony. The late afternoon sun broke through a thin layer of clouds, casting light on my face. A gentle breeze. No more burdens. No more emotional debt. No more hollow apologies. Only me. Evelyn Carter, 28 years old. As free as if I'd just been born for the first time. 3 weeks have passed since that last call. I haven't answered a single message from my mom. I don't pick up when Dad's number flashes on my screen. Jason has gone silent after that final, bitter text, which I still keep, not out of guilt, but as a reminder to never let myself soften. I no longer wake up in the middle of the night to a buzzing phone. I don't feel anxiety checking my bank balance. Life is eerily quiet. As if I've slammed a door shut, that even the strongest winds can't blow open again. But in that quiet, the questions slowly started creeping in. Was I too harsh? Did I do the right thing by cutting them off so cleanly, by letting them face the consequences in full? Family, however broken, warped, or flawed, was still the place I grew up. Still held a few memories of childhood, however few and far between. I wondered, was Mom crying? Was Dad ashamed? Did Jason finally realize he couldn't keep relying on others forever? I didn't know. What I did know was that if I went back, even once, it would all begin again. They would apologize, make promises, say they understood. But a few months later, I'd get the message again. We're short this month, can you help us out? And the cycle would reset. Back to square one. Back to Evelyn carrying the weight. Back to suffocating. It took me nearly 10 years to realize. Love doesn't mean unconditional sacrifice. Family is not a free pass to rob someone of their peace, without ever once looking inward. One Sunday afternoon, I walked through the park near my home, where people were flying kites, playing ball, walking their dogs. I sat on a bench, watching everyone around me, and suddenly, I laughed, because for the first time in a very long while, I didn't feel like I had to pay for this peace. I didn't have to ask anyone's permission. No more guilt, no more fear that someone would call just as I was enjoying myself, and ruin everything with a cold sentence like, "Did you forget what your mom needs?" I was no longer in a world where my emotions always came second to someone else's needs. But there were still moments, when I got home and sat on my sofa under the warm yellow light, when I felt strangely empty. Not because I was lonely, I had friends, coworkers, and healthy relationships beginning to grow, but because I had once loved the very people who hurt me. I had truly wanted them to get better. I had hoped that one day they would see me, not as a living ATM, but as a real human being, with a heart that could break. I don't blame them anymore. I just let go. One night, I sat down to journal. The first line I wrote was, I forgive, not because they deserve it, but because I don't want to carry this anger anymore. I know now that forgiveness doesn't mean going back. It doesn't mean continuing to tolerate pain. Sometimes, forgiveness simply means putting down the knife so your own hand stops bleeding. I don't know what's become of the old house. Maybe they're scraping together money to catch up. Maybe they've already lost it. Maybe they're still trying to call me, message me, pull me back in. But this time, I'm no longer an easy target. I am Evelyn Carter, 28 years old. I was once exploited under the name of family. But I'm also the woman who dared to cut the cord, dared to walk away, dared to choose herself, even if it meant being called ungrateful. If you ask me whether I have regrets, yes, I do. I regret loving a family that didn't love me back. I regret staying silent for too long. I regret having to be shattered before I learned how to say no. But if you ask me whether I'm sorry, no, absolutely not. I didn't let myself continue breaking for people who didn't value me. I held on to the one thing that mattered most, my self-respect. And I believe that is the beginning of every good thing I deserve. This story doesn't end with a reunion or teary hugs. It's not a fairy tale, it's real life, where a young woman chose to live for herself after being drained to the core. And if you've made it this far, if you've ever been an Evelyn like me, I just want to say this. You are not cruel for protecting yourself. You're simply learning to love the right person. And that person, first and foremost, must be you. Evelyn's story is a painful but necessary wake-up call. Family ties are not a free pass to abuse someone's kindness. No matter the blood bond, no one has the right to turn you into a walking wallet, drowning you in guilt just to keep serving their needs. Evelyn's decision to walk away from the cycle of manipulation wasn't selfish. It was brave. Because sometimes real love begins when you choose yourself, not when you keep enduring a broken relationship. What do you think about Evelyn's decision? Was she too harsh, or was that the only way to protect herself? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to follow the channel to keep exploring more powerful, emotional, real-life stories about family.